Well, welcome to ATGLive. Your what is it? What's today's day? Thursday. Your Thursday night home for all things Star Wars. I'm one of your hosts, Pete Fletcher. I'm joined, as always, by my good friend and co-host Nick Milkey over this way, where I can't figure out the pointing. It's only been we've been doing this. We've been doing this show for a little over a year, and over a year ago when we first started the new format and everything, we've gone through 100 different backgrounds and layouts and approaches. But one thing that we've always kept is we've always had guests, and one of our first guests was Kyle Katarn, who's going to join us again tonight. So make sure to hang out. We're gonna shift things up just a little bit tonight. We're gonna do our toast, we're gonna do our housekeeping, then we're gonna bring in Kyle, and we're gonna do our skeleton crew conversation first, and then stick around for the news. And then we want to take all of your calls. We want to hear what you thought about Skeleton Crew or anything you're thinking about in Star Wars. Who's the shilliest shill of the shills? Maybe it's me. Maybe it's somebody else. Who cares? Guys, thanks for hanging out. Nick, how are you doing, bud?
I'm here, and
I Chris always Ryans with the.
I was say it's become the Chris Ryans, the deep sigh, the moment of waiting. Yes. This is the bright spot in my week. I have a wonderful family. They are bright spots in my week. I have a job and a home and many things to be thankful for. But on Thursday nights, when I get to hang out with one of my best friends and a bunch of my weird space friends, have a drink, talk about Star Wars, that's right there near the top of things to be excited about. So I'm great. We had a great show. We had a great finale to a show that we've all enjoyed, and we get to talk about it. So I'm doing fantastic, and I'm excited to hear from everybody in the chat.
Well, good. Well, let's not waste time not talking about it. Nick, do you want to do a toast first, or why don't we do that a little bit later on in the show? What do you think? How does that sound?
You're the boss. Let's make some.
I'm not really the boss. I just I'm the loudest at this moment. See, if you take too long and you do a long sigh, I'm going to jump in. I'm going to be a pain in the ass. So why don't we bring in our guest, Mr. Kyle Katarn? Where is he? Oh, it's SM33. So
hello there.
Oh, there he is.
How's it going, gentlemen? Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Absolutely.
It is
excited to talk about some Skeleton Crew.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we normally do a show here that we call Beyond the Barrier, and so we're going to dig into it that way. But before we get started, maybe for the 3 people who follow us that may not know you, give us a little bit of background about you and where people can follow you, because after they watch you hanging out with us tonight, they're going to want to go and follow you if they're not already. So
sure, absolutely. Yeah, hello there, everybody. I'm Kyle Katarn. You may remember me from defeating Jarek at the Valley of the Jedi. I after that became a YouTuber, and now I react to Star Wars content on YouTube. I stream games on Twitch. I post some snarky memes on Twitter and Blue Sky. My handle is Kyle Katarn with a 1 for the L. You can find me everywhere. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, we are happy to have you. We are going to go straight into our Beyond the Barrier show. So I'm just going to kick that. We're not going to do the graphics or the videos, but I am going to start by saying, ahoy there, Star Wars adventurers, and welcome to Beyond the Barrier, exploring the mysteries of Skeleton Crew. I'm your host, Pete Fletcher, and as always, I'm joined by my good friend and Star Wars first mate, Mr. Nick Milkey. We'll chart a course through the twists, the turns, and the treasures of Disney Plus's Star Wars series, Skeleton Crew.
That is right, Pete. Tonight, we are breaking down episode 8, which is titled The Real Good Guys, and we've got an exciting show lined up for you. And what is on deck for us tonight?
Well, for those of you listening on the stream afterwards, we are joined by Kyle Katarn. Kyle, once again, give me one word, Kyle, one word that hit you after watching this episode.
Honestly, it seems like a trite answer, but entertained.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that word at all. I think that's a fantastic way to put it. Nick, how did you feel? What was your kind of one word reaction to this show?
My word was satisfied.
Episode.
We've done this one word thing as we've talked about the episodes, over the last few weeks. I've struggled at times to come up with what is my one word. There's a bunch of words, but honestly, this one was satisfied. It wrapped up in a way that made me very happy.
Yeah, that's I said it before, and I think I've said it about almost all the shows. They needed to land the plane, and so I guess my one word response was I'm going to make it I'm going to hyphenate this 2-word response and call it mission accomplished, because I think they did a great job of giving us a full story, which outside, I think, honestly, of Mandalorian season 1 and maybe Kenobi, they gave us the full story. They gave us the, you know, if we don't get a season 2, and my goodness, I hope we do get a season 2. If we don't get one, it's okay. I think we're going to survive. How did you feel about, you know, before we dig into the episode itself, Kyle, thoughts on a second season? Do we need a second season? Where do we feel? How do you feel about that?
If it gets a second season, I'll definitely be excited for that. I think that would be rad for the story to continue, because I've grown pretty attached to these characters. Whether or not it's necessary, though, I'm not so sure. I don't think that we need to have this default expectation that all shows need to bloat themselves up to 1 million seasons in length. Like, sometimes you set out to tell a story, you tell that story, and then you walk away. And like, those are some of them. There are examples of some of my favorite shows are just single seasons in that way. Sometimes it's better to let a show end before it goes on too long and like the quality goes downhill. Like, it gets that late season curse that so many shows get. It's complicated for me because I'm a Star Wars fan. I'll always love Star Wars, and I'll always want more Star Wars, you know?
Right, that's right.
But I think that a season should be able to stand on its own as a story and doesn't necessarily need to have this, like, I don't know, audiences almost feel like too entitled to a story continuing. Like, maybe that's the entirety of the story. You know, we're going to see these characters and the properties potentially.
Yeah.
So short answer is yes. I want a season 2, but I don't need a season 2, and I will not be heartbroken if we don't get a season 2.
Yeah, I agree, and that's such a rarity, I think, in streaming. I think streaming has consistently recently, well, streaming is recent, but I think streaming tends to want to leave itself so open at the end that if it's a smash hit, the producers can come in and give us more.
Spaceballs do request for more money. That's always
exactly
every time, right?
Exactly. And every time I hear about the potential, you know, and especially as it's related to this, and it's a direct connection, you see the occasional murmurings that they're going to make a Goonies 2, and now it's like 40 years later or whatever it is. I never want to see that. I don't need that. And so I agree. I'm glad we got to where we.
Yeah. Case in point, there's currently rumblings about a Gremlins 3. You know?
Yes.
Yeah. No, thank you.
If it happens, I'm so there.
Yeah, I'll go watch it, but I don't need it. No, thank you.
No one needs it, but like, it would, you know, be kind of fun, kind of nice.
Yeah.
It could be. It could surprise me.
It's like waxing your car. You know, you really just got to wash it.
You just got to do it.
Exactly.
That's right. Well, Nick, why don't we dig into this particular episode, and for those of you who are following along, we assume you've probably seen it, but Nick, I'm going to toss to you.
Yes, we are going to jump in. We're going to hit the high points of this episode, recap it. So if for some reason you are watching this and you have not watched the finale of A Skeleton Crew,
what are you doing?
Be warned. Be warned. Yes. First of all, what are you doing? But also, I've done this every time we've done it. There be spoilers here. So we're going to ruin it for you. Watch it, come back, whatever you need to do, or just hang out. We'll tell you about it, and then you can still go watch it. It's still going to be really
good.
Our
description is not going to be so good that you're not going to not have seen it. Okay, so
that's right.
Well, let's dig into plotting the course and do a quick recap of this week's episode. It was called "The Real Good Guys," which I thought was kind of a cool and fun title. It was directed by John Watts. It had a runtime of 40 minutes, and the official Disney description says a journey filled with adventure comes to a surprising end. I was just gonna dig in there, but I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna go in a little bit here and talk about how the episode started. It did start with Jod Nanawood igniting his blue lightsaber, reuniting the children with their families. Kind of picked up that cliffhanger. Farah thanks Jod for his efforts, but his responses reveal that he's got ulterior motives, and he's cryptically emphasizing the importance of keeping At-Atin safe, while subtly chastising the children for their reckless journey. Jod insists that the children must be confined to their quarters under the watchful eyes of the safety droids, claiming their behavior has been troublesome. However, he singles out Fern, inviting her to accompany him to meet the enigmatic supervisor, hinting that she might learn about responsibility. And Farah was excited about that. Guys, I thought it was kind of interesting that he pulled Fern out and didn't just send them all back. What was the reason for that?
I mean, I think that he could identify that Fern was the most strong-willed and outspoken of the group, and the least likely to stay quiet. Like,
Yeah.
He needed to keep her under his direct supervision because he knew that the moment he was gone, she was going to tell her mom everything. Droid or no droid, that didn't intimidate her like it intimidated the other ones.
Right.
That's the way I saw it. And that was also Farrah's first kind of red flag. They're like, oh, I'm not letting my daughter out of my sight. Like, okay, I'll come too. You know?
Yeah.
Good move on her.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that you're exactly right, Kyle. And I also kind of saw it just as that potential, if you're going to take a bargaining chip with you, who are you going to take? You're going to take the strongest willed person to come with you because,
Captain, right.
Neil's cute and all, but
Captain.
You're taking the captain. You're taking the person in charge as the one that you want to keep not only closest, but maybe the most value to you if you have to make a adjustment to your plan along the way.
For sure.
Well, meanwhile, as that is happening, they get sent home. Wendell is sharing a quiet dinner with Wim. They've been apart for a little bit, so they have this, father-son moment under the gaze again of the safety droid. It's not weird at all to be like, "Hey, let's have a nice call." It kind of felt like the Saturday Night Live skit where the parents are eating dinner and it's the knives and forks on the plate, but there's just a security guard, behind you.
Very small detail in the very beginning of the scene. Wendell says, "There's nothing like a home cooked meal."
Yes.
In the microwave.
He just nuked some space lasagna. Like,
yep. Yeah. It actually made me feel like Back to the Future too. Nobody rehydrates a pizza like you, Mom. So Wendell is still focused on career aspirations, and that contrasts sharply with Wim's reflection on the wider galaxy, which he has, of course, now seen. He's been out beyond that barrier. Wendell asks about the Jedi quest. Wim cautiously avoids revealing Jod's true nature due to the safety droid being there. Despite this, he warns his father that dangers exist beyond their world. Again, he knows. He's been there, and he says we need to act. As Fern, Farrah, and Jod ascend to meet the supervisor, that sense of unease grows. Upon entering that chamber filled with dusty computers, I love the way this shot developed. That wide angle, nobody's been here in who knows how long. The supervisor, a large... The large dome-shaped droid reveals itself, and I don't ever get things right, but I called, and it was an easy call, but I called at the very beginning. The supervisor is going to be a droid.
Yep.
Reveals itself. Yes. Hal, that red eye is Hal 9000 all day long.
Hal R5D4.
Expressing familiarity with Farrah and Fern. When Jod introduces himself as the Republic emissary and Jedi, the supervisor then grows suspicious, referencing the Republic's last message labeling the Jedi as traitors. Jod levitates that lightsaber. The supervisor presses him further, prompting Fern to do what Fern does, expose Jod as a pirate intending to rob the Mint. The supervisor commands the safety droids to arrest Jod, but of course he swiftly defends himself with his lightsaber, destroying the droids, plunging his blade deep into the supervisor's receptor eye. This disables all the droids, plunges the city into the darkness. I saw somebody post online today. They love to see that AT-AT lives on a grid system the same way we all do. That power, just everything goes out, dominoes falling down. And it exposes AT-AT to external threats. But Jod dismisses the concerns, focusing on enabling his fleet's invasion. His true intentions become clear. He contacts that crew, and he is celebrating the upcoming heist. They're digging in. Everything's happening, and Jod has taken full control. Kyle, as he plunges that saber deep into that robot supervisor's eye, where was your head? What was your excitement level for kind of how that was developing?
It was, I was like, okay, the big reveal. I was still kind of processing the reveal that he is a droid,
Right.
The supervisor is a droid. And before I had really kind of wrapped my head around that, he's already dead.
That's it.
He got Snoked a little bit, didn't he?
He did get, yeah.
My mind in that moment was in the Phantom Menace with Qui-Gon slowly cutting through the thick, heavy blast doors, just holding it in there. That's really what visually it was reminiscent of for me.
Yeah, even the way he was holding the lightsaber. He was doing the whole kind of slow-mo.
I'd be willing to call it a reference. The posing, the framing of it all. Yeah,
I absolutely agree.
Yep, I bet you if you put them side by side, they would line up pretty well. And this episode was remarkably full of Phantom Menace throwbacks to me. All the droids just powering down when the control ship or the controller in this case went down. It was great. So as the pirate frigate breaches the barrier and begins bombarding the city, Wim and Wendell witness the chaos, and while Wendell insists on trusting the safety droids, Wim convinces him to act, rallying his friends KB and Neil to escape the escalating destruction. This was when things really heated up. They began. They put together a plan to help by flying beyond the barrier and contacting the Republic, and pursued by pirate airspeeders, a la Return of the Jedi. Right? I felt like skiff guards. The children navigate dangerous terrain on hover bikes, narrowly escaping over a ravine, seeking refuge in the school building. And while Wendell helps activate the Onyx Cinder starship, the others fend off the pirates, showcasing their resourcefulness. Meanwhile, Farah and Fern conspire to stop Jod, with Fern proposing they use disabled safety droid's blaster to subdue him, and Jod's intercom addressed to At-Atan citizens, threatening severe punishment for resistance, underscoring his ruthless grip on the city. I loved, I just totally skimmed over there, but one of my favorite parts of the bike, the speeder bike thing, of course, we all felt like it was Endor meets ET, and it meets Stranger Things. But my favorite part of all of it was when Wendell steals the bike from Baj Falpa. Just the look on the kid's face was perfect. But again, it was one of those Chekhov's guns that they put throughout the episode. They paid off everything. There's nothing that's not paid off in this show.
I also enjoyed the payoff in that sequence of them utilizing the jump that we see Fern and KB use in the very first episode while Wim's riding the bus.
Yes.
And it's like, oh man, how cool is that? I wish I could do that. And then here we are. Also, the fact that this is definitely like the most, bar none, exciting thing that has ever happened in Wendell's life.
Yes,
it's true.
And he like turned back into a kid in that moment. Like that was great.
That was exactly what I was going to say. You could see it progress from the quiet dinner table, the home cooked meal, to this man came alive with his kid on this adventure, which actually meant something. Like they were, they weren't like going out to go have a fun hike and go camping. Like they're trying to save lives. They're trying to do this thing, but you see it. And through that jump, and I'm too big, I'm not going to make it, makes that jump. And you feel him come alive throughout it. And I thought that was a great, a testament to the nature of, what the energy of the show has been all along, that childlike wonderment. And we see it, all the parents, throughout this show. It's all about the job and the great work and your career. And there's this underlying tone of like, but there's still wonder in the galaxy to be found and to be had.
Yep.
So we keep this going. Wim devises a bold distraction. He confronts Jod in the supervisor's chamber, claiming that he has alerted the Republic forces. Jod dismisses the warning, sharing a haunting story of his childhood. He recalls growing up starving until a Jedi, ragged and desperate, found him and discovered that he was Force sensitive. She taught him what she could before she was hunted down and executed before her eyes. He describes the galaxy as a dark place with only pinpricks of light and warns that survival means killing when necessary. Wendell persuades Wim not to pull the lever, not to deactivate the barrier, prompting Jod to deactivate his lightsaber, claiming he doesn't want to harm At-Atan, just keeping it profitable for the great work. As Wendell breaks free and attacks Jod, a struggle ensues near that power level. Fern urges Wim to grab the lightsaber. Jod restrains her with the Force while trying to reclaim the weapon. With Jod distracted, Fern rushes to Wim and Farah, and Farah takes the chance to lower that power level. Satellites forming the barrier collapse, and the green glow enveloping At-Atan fades. For the first time, the people of At-Atan see a sky full of stars. Jod, now defeated, silently stares at his captors as the night sky opens up above. Here's what I loved about that so much. His comment about the dark galaxy with the pinpricks of light. When that barrier comes down, they see that sky full of stars. And yes, those pinpricks of light are stars, but it's also that reminder for these kids and these people who have been on this planet blocked in, thinking that's all there is, that those pinpricks of light are other galaxies and other planets and other places and adventures and things to go. And so he paints it as a bad thing, but the reality is, it's also a good thing. I thought that was so cool.
I'm still processing, and this is the hardest thing to figure out about John, is I really believe that he didn't want to have to hurt anybody. Like it's really interesting to see sort of a villain, because we've seen great villains where like I didn't want to do that, like Riddler in the Batman, the latest Batman. I didn't want to have to kill all these people, and same thing with John, but John meant it, right?
I mean, I guess he really didn't want to. He shouldn't have. He could have just not done it.
Well, yes,
I mean,
there's that.
So at the end of the day, like at the very worst of it, he's either an anti-hero or a villain, right? There's no real noble iteration of this character, at least that we ever got to see.
Right.
Sure.
I don't know. I thought Jude Law's performance was fantastic, and I liked how much time he spent like getting on the kids' level, like especially in the earlier episodes. Like he would just match their energy and just be like the fifth kid in the room when they were debating what to do next. Like Fern would make faces at him, he'd just make faces right back at her. Like that's the level of maturity that he's operating from. And we know now that it was setting the stage for this juxtaposition for when he becomes very grim and very serious and very dangerous. But I don't know that I would give him that much leeway. Like it's like he kind of sort of doesn't want to hurt people, but here you are hurting people. Like if you really didn't want to,
right,
you wouldn't be doing this in the first place. So I don't know. I believe him, but it doesn't buy him much as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, no, it was so hard, I think, too, because I wanted Jod to be a good guy. I wanted him to be, and I think that's the great thing about this show and this from day one. And I talked about it when I was on Screen Crush. It's the only thing, and we had it sort of restated in the interview in Entertainment Weekly with the showrunners. All we know about Jod is what the kids know about Jod, and that allowed us as the audience to be like, oh, maybe he is a good guy. We saw him from Wim's perspective. We saw him from Fern's perspective. We saw it all over. So I think and to that point, that's what made him such a great, what made that performance so great. So, I don't want to take us all the way to the end of the episode because I think, we know what happens. The X-Wings came in, the B-Wings came in, which B-Wings, hello,
So cool.
So happy to see B-Wings.
Such a good.
But let's talk about a couple of key things, and one of them being, let's dig a little bit more into where does the show go from here. We talked about it at the top. Let me throw it this way: there is there's no denying that now the New Republic has found Treasure Island. What's that going to do to the Star Wars galaxy at this point? Because we have never seen. We don't know what's coming. We really don't, other than The Force Awakens.
It's definitely a level of wealth that you would see the effects of 30 years later. So
yeah,
if the Republic was going to build something up using this, it would be something that at least gets referenced in the time of the sequels. And the only thing that I can think of that's around in the sequels that isn't around right now that would cost untold trillions is the First Order's fleet.
Yep.
So I think that's where the money is ultimately going to go. I think it's going to get badly mismanaged by the New Republic. And I'm sure that as soon as Katie O'Brien's Imperial Mole character finds out about this Treasure Island, and like the Council of Moffs are going to be coming for it too. And I think ultimately it's going to end up in the hands of Thrawn. And then whatever's left over after the whole Thrawn debacle, we don't even know how that's going to conclude yet. But there's got to be money left over because we're talking, 1,139 volts of pallets of credits that are not they're not single credits either. They're all exponentially more than what they were originally valued at because it's vintage, like old school money too. Right. Like imagine if the U.S. Treasury you removed all that money and then put it in fucking Spanish doubloons. That's what we're talking about. Like, so much money. So I think that whatever's left over is going to get taken by Thrawn's forces and off to the unknown regions to become the First Order's little nest egg that they'll build a fleet from.
Yeah,
all I know is I have no faith in the New Republic not to mismanage the hell out of this and then lose the money. That's my call.
Yeah, no, I like that because there have been those rumors that we're going to see some characters. We don't even know if it's a character, some characters from Skeleton Crew, but I think a connection, whether it's through gotta be
AT-AT.
Farah or whatever. Yeah, AT-AT.
Galaxy shaking revelation. That much money.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, it could even be part of the opening crawl of Filoni's movie, right? It is a tremendous
galactic inflation has ruined everything.
Yep. Well, right.
Yeah, they'll whip out Mega Maid and just suck all the credits up into the vacuum.
Yep.
Fly on to the next one.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, I said a couple weeks ago, and I think I said it on this show, maybe just in conversation with you, Pete, but if this show did nothing else, because of course we've had all these conversations, we've seen people online saying, what does this add to the narrative? What does this add to the lore? One, I don't care. It's a great show. It's a bunch of fun. But if the only thing that this show added to any of the overarching lore was where did Palpatine get the money for either Starkiller Base or the Final Order and all those ships, like you said, Kyle, okay, that's great. It doesn't have to show up again, but we can easily connect the dots and go, oh yeah, that's how they did that.
Established it for you. And you know, the whole like what purpose, how does this serve the narrative? It really runs counter to the way that I like my whole philosophy for like viewing Star Wars and just like consuming this media is that like it's like a historical timeline that's being built, right? And it's being fleshed out with these little avenues and these different side stories that more often than not lead into the big narrative through like this is how they fund the fleet, etc. But if you open a history textbook, like a real one, and you read about some events, there's going to be some other entries in that timeline that have nothing to do with anything.
That's right.
But they occurred in that time. So all something has to do is occur, and that's why it's here. Is because a lot of this is like we have so much of the timeline mapped out now that we really can start to treat Star Wars with like a historical context in universe. And so it doesn't really have to have any greater significance than like, oh, look, this is something that took place in the year 9 ABY, and that's fascinating for X, Y, and Z. Luke Skywalker doesn't even need to be part of this. You know, there's
that's right.
There's a whole different way you can come about this.
The fact that nothing in this, Zeb doesn't show up as one of the X-Wing pilots. Carson Teva doesn't show up as one of the. I love the fact that we didn't have to bring in anybody else that we already knew. This was an entirely standalone story in a gigantic galaxy. And we've talked about this for years with all these TV shows. We talked about it with Acolyte. And I mean, we get Yoda and Acolyte, we get, Plo Koon and Acolyte. That's fine. But this is the purest example of this is a story that exists in Star Wars that does not have to connect to anything else. And I love that so much. And I think that's the other thing that it adds to the narrative. And I'm agreeing with you completely. The overarching narrative is there's a million stories out there and they don't have to be Skywalker stories.
It makes it feel more real and more alive. Fleshes out the world around this narrative. And I think that's,
it doesn't make Tatooine the center of the entire big ass galaxy.
I don't know. I love cameos. I love it when you have like a random like supporting character who becomes the connective tissue, the way Carson Teva kind of did as the X-Wing pilot. But it needs to be done like, in reserve, because eventually it's like, well, wait, do they really have like 6 X-Wing pilots in the New Republic? Why are they responding to things all over the goddamn galaxy? There should be nameless, like just like there should be untold numbers in their ranks at this point, because the demilitarization push has not gone all the way through yet. It's still underway. They still have a ton of people in the service. So we shouldn't be running into the same 3 beat cops on every corner of the Outer Rim like that.
Yeah.
Makes the galaxy feel too small. So the fact that there was no recognizable faces in this sequence, I really like that, because it means the New Republic Navy just got a little bit bigger.
That's right. Yeah. And I love, I said it a couple weeks ago, actually the Kim episode, the first Kim episode with the X-Wing pilots, every one of us was going, who's going to be the pilot? Is it going to be Carson? Is it going to be Zeb? Is it going to be somebody else we know? And I had the temporary
I try to stop myself from going there, but I do it too. But like, I don't want to fall victim to these
same. And I had a temporary moment of disappointment where I went, oh shit, it's not Carson, because we love Paul Sun-Young Lee and we love seeing him in Star Wars. But immediately I went, no, that's a good thing. Like, I'm so here for, there's other just random X-Wing police. There's other patrol officers out doing their job.
Yep.
Well, and also on a meta level too, it's like introduce new characters, because on the one side that you're casting new actors, more people are getting jobs, but also more action figure variants. Now we get another Black Series. We got another pilot of the New Republic pack to round out. Like,
that's right.
All kinds of different reasons why I'd prefer that.
Yep. Well, Kyle, before we let you go, I do want to bring up one last topic, because it is kind of a hot topic, and it's I don't know if it's important or not. That's the thing that I can't decide. And that is, unfortunately, the show that has actually brought the fandom together, people who have been angry at Star Wars, people who have always been there. We all have enjoyed this show, but the ratings of this show are actually, unfortunately, reflective of the worst ratings that Star Wars television has had in its 5-year run.
Worse, they're worse than the Acolyte.
The Acolyte opened up great. The Acolyte opened up high. Now, we don't have all the full season stuff, because Acolyte closed incredibly poorly, unfortunately. But do the ratings matter? Does it? I mean, you posted something today about I can't remember the quote exactly, but something to the effect of, as a fan, I'm not worried about the ratings too much. But what are your thoughts on what does that mean? Because it was such a great story that so many fans loved.
I mean, yeah, it seemed to be pretty well received on a firsthand level, just by the people in my orbit, the people that I had conversations with about the show.
Yep.
So the ratings being that low, I think is more indicative of just like less audience tuning in for Star Wars, which is kind of a shame. But really what I was conveying before with what I was saying on Twitter is that, like, I'm a Star Wars nerd and it's my job to watch the Star Wars. I'm not a TV executive and it's not my job to stress out about the ratings. Like, I don't like, to be perfectly honest, like there's a lot of like rating and demographic information out there that I don't even know how to interpret because I've never concerned myself with it. I feel like a dog using a calculator. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. Like, and yes, there's an element of self-serving there. I just, like, want to watch my entertainment and enjoy it. On the other hand, if the viewership is low, that's all that matters to Disney, right? They don't care how vocal and this hardcore little small fan base is. It doesn't matter how beloved the show is. If the numbers aren't there, then they're going to cut it loose because it's not going to make them money. And that's just the end of the line. Yep. So does it matter? As if you're in the business of the TV world, then sure. But if you're just like watching entertainment, I don't think it really matters. And it's definitely not like something to tout as a cudgel in a conversation about whether someone enjoyed the show.
Correct.
It's like, oh, well, the ratings. Which I was like, well, who cares about the ratings?
Did you watch it and like it? Yep. Cool.
Yep.
Like, I think the one.
It's a very nuanced issue though, because like, while I don't personally really care if it's well received by like critics, because I know what I like and this is my personal. I seem to have lost my mic. That's too bad.
Well, we can hear you. We just can't see you.
We can hear you. There you are.
I just got a new cable. That's probably what happened. But like on the other end of it, like, even though I may not really concern myself with ratings, shows getting renewed keeps people employed, and you want the creatives working behind the scenes to create these shows to be successful and to do well and to stay employed as well. And so there's like a behind the scenes motivation for why you would really want the ratings to be good. You want your show to be successful. Looking at it from the standpoint of art, let a story end when it's ready to end, and don't just don't prolong its life for the sake of money. That's a very corporate approach, and it's kind of anti-art. But usually a middle ground is where you have to play nice with a studio, and then somewhere in that middle, that's where you get the great shows.
Yeah. I think there's
concern myself with ratings that much because it's I don't know, it's not a conversation worth having. Really, well, I have no control over the ratings of the show. I'm one person. I'm one member of the audience.
Well, and I think the bigger, like, if I think of it from a pure business perspective, as you do when you look at ratings, I would be more curious to see if they lost viewers, subscriptions, or gained subscriptions, because that's really all that matters. If nobody turns on Disney Plus, they're still making their $15 a month or $20 a month or 10, whatever it is. I don't even know what I'm paying for it. Isn't that crazy? So
I don't actually know either.
Yeah, I have no idea what it costs right now.
What are we doing?
Wait, it's $12,000. What?
That would explain so much.
Yeah, I thought it was the helmets. It's not that. But
definitely not the helmets.
From that perspective, yeah, I mean, I think it matters that people might care more about Star Wars again. So, like, if I'm forecasting, right, if I'm looking at this from a what's the future look like, if I'm finding and keeping more Star Wars fans happy, they're going to stay around longer. And if the conversation is more positive than negative, and again, say what you will about Acolyte, whether you loved it or hated it, there's no denying that it didn't enthuse the average fan, and it pissed off a section of the fandom which actually is just louder than they are in size. So, but from that pure perspective, Acolyte didn't drive the business, whereas this show, even if the ratings are low, I feel like it drove the brand. And I think, to me, that's where the power is. So I don't know, I'm not sure. Nick, you were going to say something and I was just very rude.
Yeah, I just was going to add, when we look at this conversation about ratings and topics and all that kind of stuff, that caveat, and you both hit on it, because this is a business and I don't need to know the ins and outs of demographics and age groups and household makeups and all these kinds of things. But we've tried to paint this conversation, certainly in the most recent, last year or so, we've painted a lot of it in the light of the Acolyte and what happened with the Acolyte. I think the key difference here is critically, there's some critical ratings, some things about the story that, are different. But I think the other bottom line when we talk about this being a business, and Pete, we've said it too many times, is the dollars spent to make this show. The amount of money that was spent to make Skeleton Crew is nothing compared to what Acolyte was. So this show may not have gotten as much viewership, but it also didn't cost as much to make. And so that critical love for it could be something that down the line they go, you know what, we could do that again, and it won't break us the way $260 million, and over budget that the Acolyte did. That cost versus return may make it more likely. And I'm sure, and I can't come up with an example off the top of my head, I'm sure there have been some TV shows over the years that had a crappy first season or a mediocre first season, but somehow got a chance to go again and took off like a rocket.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So that was my only other thought, was just, the cost that goes into it is, the other part of it.
Sure. Well, Kyle, you have one more thought before we let you go. Thank you again for hanging out with us, man. I appreciate it.
Just to reiterate my answer to your question, like I'm surrounded by Star Wars. Like it's everywhere. It occupies a very permanent level of space in my brain on a daily basis. I've already got that going on. I'm not willing to also take on the stress and the burdens of Star Wars like TV performance on like a corporate level. Unless I'm also making a corporate salary, all right? There's some wiggle room there. But
sure.
I'm not getting paid to stress about these numbers, so I'm just simply not going to. I think that's the best way to summarize it. Thank you so much for having me, guys. This has been a fun conversation.
This has been
really
great.
Good to see you.
You're welcome anytime. If you're watching on Kyle's channel, thanks for joining us tonight. We are going to be taking your phone calls in just a couple minutes. We're going to keep things going, but we're going to let Kyle run. Thank you so much, Kyle. We'll see you soon, and we'll be back in just a minute with more ATG Live. Well, we are back with ATG Live, your Thursday night home for all things Star Wars. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. We have juggled the format tonight. We were so lucky to have Kyle join us. Kyle has been a friend of the show for quite a while and outspoken and has really great and well thought of perspective. Between him this week and Chaco last week, I feel like we're bringing in all the big brains, which is good because God knows we could use the help, Nick. So, and part of that reason is because we do these crazy ass toasts and we fry our brain cells. So we're gonna do a toast.
That's right.
We're gonna do the news, and then we're gonna take your call. So if you're hanging out with us, thank you so much. Make sure to like, subscribe, share, all that stuff that you're supposed to do. Have a drink ready. We're going to do a quick toast, and we're going to do the news. And again, we're going to put that link up. We want to hear from you, or go leave us a voicemail at 504-321-1501. We'll play it live. I won't even listen to it before it goes up, so I don't even know what you're going to say. So go ahead, 504-321-1501. Leave us a call and look for that link. Join us on screen. And Nick, what are we doing for January?
Okay, well, if anybody is hanging out with us, I know some of Kyle's streamers and friends from his stream were watching with us tonight. Thank you so much for being here. We love having y'all join us. We are here most Thursday nights. We'd love for you to join us again. If you've not been with us before, we do a monthly beer chugging toast. It started with Snoketoberfest. It continued into Snokevember. Darth Simber was recent, and it is currently Jan Dodanuary.
Yes.
Based on our favorite Star Wars General Jan himself. What we do is we pour a beer, we drop an action figure into it, and then we play about a 10-second clip of some audio, and we try to finish that beer beforehand. If you've been with us the last couple of weeks, you know that our Ewok has been substituting for General Dodonna simply because I didn't have my General Dodonna action figure. But guess what? eBay came I've got it. I pre-opened it so that we can be ready. Unboxing live on air. There he is, the man himself, General Dodonna. Let me get this out. This is the least sanitary thing I've ever done in my life.
Who knows where that came from?
From some other stranger's house is General Dodonna. He is going into my beer. We'll leave him right here on the edge for just a second. And we're going to raise our toast tonight. We had a couple of, big losses today. We learned about Bob Uecker, Mr. Baseball himself. If you've seen Major League, if you've been a fan of baseball at any point in your life, Bob Uecker passed away. I'll be honest, I thought Bob Uecker was already dead. I was not. I was surprised to learn he died.
Laugh at that, but it is kind of silly. Yes.
Yeah, and then also David Lynch passed away. We learned that late this afternoon as well. I know there are lots of Twin Peaks fans. David Lynch has done a lot of amazing work. So we're going to raise our glass tonight to both of those gentlemen. We're going to toast their families and their loss. So Pete, we're going to drop General Dodonna into our beer. If you'll hit that audio, and it will be cheers and happy Jan Dodanuary.
An analysis of the plans provided by Princess Leia has demonstrated a weakness in the battle station. You're required to maneuver straight down this trench and skim the surface to this point.
I'm gonna have to shorten that clip, man, because you are getting way too good at this. Way too good at this.
I don't know if we should be excited about it. Don't encourage me, Pete. That's what we're learning here.
I know. That's part of the problem. So, yeah, wow. So make sure you are ready to call in. I see Eric is waiting patiently for the link. We will put it up after we finish up the news. We want to hear from you. What did you think of Skeleton Crew? What did you think of the news? What is your crazy theory? What are you thinking about when it comes to Star Wars? Give us a call, 504-321-1501 to leave a voicemail, or be ready to click that link to join us. But Nick, I think it is time to get to the news.
Well, Pete, you are right. We are your go-to source for all the Star Wars news of the week. This week, we've got not one, but two new animated series heading to Disney+, a fan favorite Clone Wars villain joining the Mando movie, and Ahsoka is getting the Obi-Wan treatment. It's a lot to cover, so we're going to jump right in. And don't forget, all these stories and more can be found on our website, the sswnetwork.com. So let's dive right in. First off, two new animated series are coming to Disney+. Insider Daniel Rickman, who we've talked about a lot lately, has revealed on his Patreon that Lucasfilm is working on two new animated Star Wars series for Disney+. With White, Weaver, and Coin on board, the Mandalorian and Grogu animated storytelling, which began in 2008 with the Clone Wars. I don't know what that means exactly. I don't know if I got some text mixed up. For nearly 2 decades, Star Wars fans have enjoyed a steady stream of high-quality animated 3D series, including Rebels, Resistance, and The Bad Batch. With Bad Batch concluding its run in May 2024, Lucasfilm has been without a primary animated series for the first time since 2008. Meanwhile, smaller animated projects have continued to enrich the galaxy far, far away. The anthology series Visions is set to return for a season 3 in 2025, offering new stories from animation studios around the world. Additionally, the child-oriented Young Jedi Adventures will release the second half of its season this year. Disney Plus has also embraced other anthology shorts with Tales of the Jedi and Tales of the Empire, though plans for a third season of the Tales of the Jedi do remain uncertain. Given Star Wars' unbroken track record of releasing major animated series annually, it's likely one of these new projects could debut later this year. And details at the moment remained under wraps. Fans can anticipate exciting developments that will carry the animated legacy of Star Wars forward. Pete, animated series, for the most part, you and I are always on board with those. There's one that neither one of us have been able to manage to get through. One day we will.
I'm not sure.
What do you feel? I'm not sure either, but that's okay. We're positive. We're fan positive.
Right. Yes.
What do you think about more upcoming animated series? And maybe, the easiest question is, what are you looking for out of the next animated show?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we've learned is that Star Wars actually is a great story to be told in animation. And I think one of the things that we've learned is live action television works, but there's so much restriction from a cost perspective that what we end up getting is sort of condensed stories. Whereas with animation, we get 22, 15, 18 episodes, and the stories get flushed out. Yeah, they're 25 minutes long, but we get a little bit more to it. So I would love to see more in fact, I would almost go so far as to say, and this is perhaps a little bit of a hot take in itself, but I would not mind if Star Wars live action was in the movie theaters and Star Wars additional storytelling was animated on Disney Plus. So
I mean, bring that hot take on. Take a break from TV shows. I like this one from Dark Thor. Give us Luke's Temple animated show. And I think that's a great point that I'd love to tag on to for my part of this news story is use animation. And I know we've said this. I would love a Clone Wars animation style series set somewhere in the original trilogy between 5 and 6, right after Return of the Jedi. Like, continue those adventures and give us some animated Luke, Leia, Han, Chewie, Lando, some of the things that are going on in and around that era, because that's a place where you can utilize the amazing voice talents of people like Shelby Young and not have to be reliant on the fact that we've lost a lot of these amazing actors over the years.
Yep.
But expand those stories for that. It brings nostalgia to so many of us. But again, the canvas is wide open. We can get any number of things. And I would be willing to bet we're going to hear about some of that coming out of Celebration in Japan in April.
100%. Agreed.
Absolutely. Well, our next story, Embo is rumored to be the villain in Mandalorian
Speaking of animation
movie. Right? Speaking of animation, fans of Star Wars have new details about The Mandalorian and Grogu, the highly anticipated spinoff movie. According to Chris Coyne, returns as a member of the Shadow Council, ensuring something happened with my text. I'm so sorry. My text did not copyright.
I can read it. I got it right here.
Yes, hit this one for me.
Okay, I'll take this one. It's technology, folks. It all works. Doesn't matter. Fans of Star Wars have new details about The Mandalorian and Grogu, the highly anticipated spin-off movie. Jeremy Allen from The Bear will voice Rada the Hutt, Jabba's son, marking that character's live-action debut. But the plot also reportedly revolves around a rescue mission with Din Djarin and Grogu working to free Rada from Embo, a Cuzo bounty hunter from Clone Wars. I may be getting his species wrong, but Cuzo, I believe, is the right way to say it. Embo was voiced by Star Wars creator Dave Filoni in animation, and he is a fan favorite character who appeared in 8 episodes of the animated series. His transition to live action follows a growing trend of the Clone Wars characters entering Star Wars live action universe, such as Cad Bane, who made his appearance in the Book of Boba Fett. Adding to the intrigue is Sigourney Weaver, playing a significant but enigmatic role in the film. Meanwhile, Johnny Coyne returns as a member of the Shadow Council. That's where those words were coming from, ensuring the political machinations of the Mandalorian series remain central to the story. These revelations offer the most detailed look yet at the movie's direction for fans of the Clone Wars. Embo's live-action debut is a thrilling development, potentially hinting at more animated characters joining the fray. With White, Weaver, and Coyne on board, The Mandalorian and Grogu promises to be an exciting blend of action, nostalgia, and high-stakes drama. Look for this movie on May 22nd, 2026. Nick, what are your thoughts? Are you? I mean, first of all, you know who's excited about this? Kelsey from ESPN, because she chose Embo as her bounty hunter in our
we need to get Kelsey back on here shortly and talk about the fact that her boy may be getting some play. First of all, Embo for me is Star Wars Kung Lao. For anybody who's played Mortal Kombat, he's the guy that throws his hat at people. That's what I see when I see Embo with that big, I'm assuming it's his hat. Maybe it's a part of his head. I don't know alien physiology. Who knows? Cool. Bring it on. I don't have a lot of connection to that character. I don't have a lot of heartfelt, oh my gosh, I can't believe they're bringing in Embo. I kind of felt the same way about Cad Bane. Cool. I know who that is, but I'm not intimately connected to that character necessarily. But I love hearing, that there's plans, that there's stuff going on. Certainly we know this movie. I think we've heard that it has wrapped up shooting or about to wrap up shooting.
I think it's done shooting. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I think it is. So forward motion, that's good news for me. And if we're getting little leaks about it along the way, then that means it's not going to It doesn't mean it's not going to end up on a shelf, but it means there's stuff happening and people are paying attention to it. So to me, these are all positives.
And again, it may or may not actually come down this way. And finally, I think it's I love the fact that it was a character that was voiced by Dave Filoni. He's and I'm sure he'll do it in the film. And this could be one of the things like a Constable Zuvio, even in deference to the hat there, where he just happens to be one of the bounty hunters, and he has as many lines as Bosk. So we'll see. We'll see where that goes.
We'll see. Absolutely. We've got one more story, and I've pre-read my text. I think I have this one, so let me take a shot at this.
Okay.
Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor are set to bring the Clone Wars to life in Ahsoka Season 2. Fans of Ahsoka have reason to celebrate, as a new report suggests a star-studded return for Season 2. According to Christian Harloff, Hayden Christensen will take on a more prominent role as Anakin Skywalker, joined by Ariana Greenblatt as young Ahsoka and Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi in a series of flashbacks to the Clone Wars era. The decision to bring back these beloved characters seems to build on the success of their previous appearances. Greenblatt's portrayal of young Ahsoka in Season 1 received widespread praise. Christensen's reunion with Ahsoka as a Force ghost left fans eagerly anticipating more, and McGregor's return marks only his second time reprising Obi-Wan since his titular 2022 Disney Plus series, making his return to Clone Wars era storytelling a nostalgic treat. While a live-action Clone Wars series remains unlikely, these flashbacks may be the closest thing that fans get to reliving the iconic animated series in live action. The inclusion of McGregor in Clone Wars armor, a first for the actor, is sure to generate excitement among longtime Star Wars fans, me being right at the front of the list. Season 2 of Ahsoka promises to delve deeper into the bonds forged in the Clone Wars, expanding on the legacy of the characters. Disney Plus has yet to confirm a release date, but anticipation is already building for what's shaping up to be a must-watch season. Pete, I know that you have thoughts about this. My number one thought about this is, yes, Obi-Wan in Clone Wars era armor. If there's ever a cosplay one day when I win the lottery, that's the thing I'm spending money on. Clone Wars era General Kenobi with the
and you'll be able to pull it off. Look at that face.
I think I can get away with it. But
yeah,
what does this mean to you to get more Hayden and Ewan reprising these roles?
Okay, another hot take here. But I would rather them focus on Clone Wars with the three of them than maybe hijack the Ahsoka series. I know that that is a perhaps an unpopular opinion, but I want to see it. Don't get me wrong, because I felt like the Anakin episode of the Ahsoka series was the best episode of the series. But it was like a spike in a different direction. It was a detour off the road. So look, I'm all for this, but give us it doesn't even need to be eight episodes. Give us a 4-episode miniseries or a 2-hour Disney made for television movie from Disney, or hell, put it in theaters, but give us Ariana Greenblatt, because she was a fantastic young Ahsoka.
Phenomenal.
Give us Obi-Wan and Anakin, and give us a Clone Wars story. The Clone Wars lasted more time than we saw on screen, so that there's got to be a fun mission, and it doesn't even have to play into the bigger story. But give me that, but don't hijack the Ahsoka show, which has so much potential on its own, to give us this. That's my stand.
Yeah. No, I'm here for all of it, and I want an Obi-Wan season 2, or another version, another series of that show. And I think we still have the potential to get it. I think he's got some time that they could still make that work. But if what we get is some additions to Ahsoka, and that's a way for them to involve these characters, which are going to help bring some gravitas and some critical acclaim to, Ahsoka season 1 was good.
Yeah.
It was certainly for the people who love Ahsoka a lot. And Hayden and Ewan being, having the parts to play in it that they did is what, added to that for kind of the more deeper lore Star Wars fans who are not just Ahsoka fans. So to me, it's all wins.
Yep. I mean, like I said, I will love it, and I'm hopeful that they can, but honestly, I think this is one thing that Filoni has had a bit of a problem with, is pulling these different parts together in a way that is, look, the biggest problem with the Book of Boba Fett series was, well, there was a couple problems, but my biggest issue was that they could, if they want to do flashbacks, why not have given us the Boba Fett flashback to the fight with Cad Bane so that we could care about Cad Bane showing up, right? If you haven't watched the Clone Wars animated series, if you didn't watch Rebels, the people who didn't watch Rebels did not get into Ahsoka. They had trouble. I mean, they enjoyed the show, but they missed so much. And you missed. Cad Bane was amazing for you and me, and for Clone Wars fans, but it didn't resonate, and it should have resonated. So let's get it, but let's do it right. And Filoni, love him, but he hasn't been able to pull that trigger every single time. So, so there we go. Well, we are going to take a real short break, and when we come back, we are going to take your calls. We want to hear from you. What did you think of Skeleton Crew? The link is in there. What did you think of these news stories? What's going on with you? What's your Star Wars hot take? You don't need to put on your camera. If you want to remain anonymous, go for it. Just call us in. Let's have some fun. Let's talk about Star Wars. But we're going to take a real quick break, and when we come back, we're going to take your calls, and we'll be back with more ATG Live in just a minute.
What's up, my fellow Gen X Star Wars fam? My name is Chris Rhines from Bro Axiom. You may know me from ATG's Force Connect that I co-hosted with Pete and Nick. Now, I'm the owner and operator of Bro Axiom Outpost, an online shop for all your action figure and collectibles needs like Star Wars Black Series, G.I. Joe Classified, Star Wars Vintage Collection, Marvel Legends, Star Wars Black Series and Vintage Collection, Transformers Studio Series, Star Wars action figures, Masters of the Universe, and much, much more, including Star Wars action. All right, I have a lot of Star Wars stuff. I'm just saying. Stop by and check out the store at www.broaxiomoutpost.com. Sign up to become a part of the Bounty Hunters Guild and stay updated on new pre-orders, sales, and exclusive Broaxium content. Find something you like? Use the promo code ATG5 for 5% off your first order. We have Star Wars figures, by the way.
We are back with ATG Live. Seriously, he told us it's ATG 10 now. So if you want to buy something, I'm making it his new slogan. You're going to buy this shit anyway. Do it from Chris. Go to broaxiomoutpost.com today. Let's take some calls. We got a couple people lined up for the calls again. Make sure to dial in. We got room for you to come on in. We want to hear from you, but let's get to our very first call of the evening.
So who talks first? You talk first? I talk first.
There he is, honest to Claude, wearing his Millennium Falcon t-shirt. What's going on, brother?
I want to shout out to the true crown jewel of SSW Network.
I know where you go. I know where you go with this. Yes, you are his number one fan.
Sure. I'm his number one fan of watching his streams, constantly giving comments, watch him freak out about, the spoiler alert moments.
Yes.
I did not tell him. I was like waiting for him to react to it.
Right. It's funny because I forgot that he didn't know. I won't spoil it here, but I'm actually putting together a clip of there's a huge spoiler moment in Jedi Survivor and hearing his reaction. And I know you were watching at the time, so we're going to put that together. So,
and if you're wondering why is my son talking about Trinidadian street food, it's because of his black cousin Eric.
He actually mentioned that. We were driving somewhere after he was on the stream, and he was mentioning that. So that's so great. That's cool. So Eric, what did you think of Skeleton Crew?
Screw that. I have a conspiracy.
Okay, all right, we're going to conspiracy. Here we go.
It wouldn't be Eric without a conspiracy.
So not only is Star Wars in the same universe as E.T., Indiana Jones, it's also in the same universe as Alien and Avatar.
Okay, do tell.
So,
connect the dots for me.
Avatar script done by James Cameron, it mentions Alien with a capital A. So, like, immediately made the connection. And don't worry, I'm going to get to even crazier.
Okay. I'm not worried. I'm sure you're going to get crazier.
We have was it the Zarakan from the Darth Vader comic? That to me, that's just a genetic clone. They all act almost exactly like them as the xenomorphs.
Right.
The xenomorph shows up in the Tagabeat comic. I know that's not canon to anything other than like Elseworlds, but So still shows precedent. Now, big question is, why are there so many humans in Star Wars? Where'd they come from? We haven't seen one chimp anywhere.
One chimp. Okay.
So, to me, the engineers are behind it from Prometheus.
So you're tying Alien into this as well.
Well, I said alien, remember?
Oh, yeah.
Xenomorphs?
Yes, right. Oh, yes, you did. Yep.
And it's part of the same canon. So the black goo pathogen from the Satite apple bowls is the key to the Navi and all humanoids in Star Wars. And of course, we know that if you get human-born trilobite and engineer, you get that smashing, you get a proto-xenomorph.
Right. So,
and that's why I put one of those urns into my Star Wars Episode 9 script, is because part of the reason I'm just like, how are we going to explain why there's so many? Star Wars is just like, it seems like it's like 60% humans. I'm like, where the hell did they come from? You tell me they came from one colony from Earth? No. I'm like,
but maybe you're bricks and screwing this. Maybe you're fire and spacing this. Maybe it's okay. I have to push back on this theory. I feel like once you start blending all the next thing you're going to tell me is you got a script where you have the Flash coming in and stopping Batman and Superman, but then of course Iron Man comes in and Doctor Strange has created the multiverse of fuck it, Star Wars is everywhere.
I've not tied into a big superhero universes.
Hey, not yet.
But I stuck to the sci-fi. I took it from things that can gel theoretically with all these little breadcrumbs and how I can make it.
Well, I have to say I love the creativity. I don't know if I buy all of it, but the creativity is as usual top notch, Eric. We appreciate the call for sure. And well, maybe next week you can call in and tell us what you thought of Skeleton Crew. Because
maybe I actually talk about Skeleton Crew.
Yeah, but wait for Andor to talk about Skeleton Crew. All right, my friend.
I'm just gonna. We usually do one toast a week. I'm pulling out a special straight from the bottle toast for Eric tonight because I don't know what the hell any of that was, but you thought about it and you put effort into it, and I respect you for that. So, cheers, my friend.
I wrote notes.
Awesome.
Oh, I noticed.
This typed it up on my iPad.
Oh my gosh.
Well done. We love you for that, and I'm sure we'll see you next week.
We'll catch you next time, buddy.
Right, honest pod.
Look, it was that was we're gonna create a segment called Batshit Crazy Theories, and he's gonna lead it. We're just gonna go off the screen and just
it's its own separate segment, crazy town with Eric, just whatever. Zillow, Alien, you name it.
Honest to Zillow, Claude. So hey, we the link is still there. We still have a couple minutes left. If you want to join us, click in. You don't have to use your camera. We'd love to hear from you. I'm going to check the voicemail. I don't think we have any voicemails. We do not, so we're okay to go here. We got one last caller to join us this evening, unless somebody calls in. And I think this next guy may inspire you to want to call in. So let's get to our next guy.
Patch him through.
Hi, I'm holding for General Hux.
This is Hux.
Okay, I'll hold.
Hello?
Hello? Yep, I'm still here.
Chris, please scold. Please scold Nick. I can tell. I knew you were watching from the moment that thing dropped into his drink. It's been.
You said you have Star Wars figures, but do you have General Dodonna? I mean, he's not even going to focus.
Nick.
Yes, sir.
I can't scold you for this. I would have if what I just listened to.
Eric saved me. That's what you're telling me. Eric saved me.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. It wasn't a trick or a ploy. That figure came straight out of the box from South Carolina. The person I bought it from on eBay. It wasn't new in the package.
Okay. Well, did you ask them if they at least washed it first or something? You know,
alcohol's a cleanser, right? Alcohol cleans and kills germs. That's what we're going with. Anyhow, enough about me and my nonsense and how I may be dead by tomorrow from new Star Wars action figure monkey flu.
Oh man. Yes.
Chris, Skeleton Crew. What you got, man?
Let me listen, forget Skeleton Crew. Okay. Let me tell you what my theory is.
Oh,
if Willow is in the Star Wars universe, that's all I got to say about that.
I agree with. That I agree with.
Yeah, that you know, alien or whatever. Are you insane, sir? It's Willow.
At this point, we're like 2 clicks away from the Patton Oswalt thing in Parks and Rec, where he gives the Avengers and
then the Breakfast Club. Let me tell you, they're on Chandrilla. Let me stop. 16 candles in the allegory for what happened on Alderaan. Skeleton Crew.
Yes.
It's one of those shows where like every week I was like, oh man, this is like the best episode. The next one comes out. Remember what I said about last week? Yeah, I mean that for this week. This week it's the best episode. This was a fantastic finale. And at first I was like, well, they didn't answer everything. I'm like, no, that's fine.
Yeah,
keep this going. This is a team that we can watch grow up. That we can, not grow up with because we're all old, but
right.
But like we can watch this team grow up. Like this team can have its own generation.
Mm-hmm.
The next time we see them, it could be like Stranger Things. The next time we see them, they're 13, 14. Like, I don't know how old they are in the show. I keep forgetting it was like 11 or 12 years old, something like that.
Yeah.
But we can get them in their teen years. We'll get them in their, their 20s and their, like it can keep going. We won't see the finale for them. I'll tell you that. But,
well, and I think that has to be a logical jump because, somebody pointed out that when we were at Celebration in Anaheim and this series was talked about, like it was basically, mostly finished shooting.
Yep.
Those kids grow up fast. And that's what we've seen with things like Stranger Things. Like there has to be a time jump of some sort because the next time we see these kids 2 years from now, they're going to look like 15 and 16-year-olds because they will be.
Right.
And so you have to be able to factor that in. You can't immediately continue the story simply based on the real world nature of what it takes to record, create. So so let's take a pause and then give them another story farther down that timeline.
Yeah. And the way things left off, when you see, it's almost like the Broom Boy kind of thing with Wim, is you see him looking up at those Republic ships and like, oh, that's cool. Like, maybe he'll join Cuthbert. It's my favorite dog. That maybe he's gonna join the Republic, or maybe he's gonna join the Resistance later on, and then that can mean horrible things for him. But I'm really excited to see where they could go with this crew now.
And I love that we don't know everything. I mean, listen, when we saw A New Hope in 1977, we did not know what the Clone Wars were. We had no idea that Darth was his title and that it wasn't his first name. All these things. And, and I'm actually more curious to see what Jod does next, because they just left him there. So he's still on Atten. He doesn't have a ship. Like, it would be a fun show to watch him try to like kind of blend in and try to.
Oh, they're going to arrest him. Oh, they're going to get him.
I would just love to see. He's slimy and he's sneaky. Yeah. He could have an entire life at Atten. And
so is Jod Star Wars Jack Sparrow? Does he show up in something else and he's managed to weasel his way out?
I would love to see at least him. Like, I'd love to see the kids as well, but I think at least him show up in this Mando Grogu film.
Yeah.
Like another Boken Jedi, since he was trained by someone post Order 66. Oh man, that's it. That's cool. That's cool.
And I saw somebody else talk about this. I loved that he turned out seemingly to actually have been a Jedi. It wasn't a trick. It wasn't, the Kumail Nanjiani character from Obi-Wan. Like, it wasn't a grift. It was, he's a Jedi. And we've said before, whether it's a broom boy, the fact that not every Jedi has to, every Force user has to be a Jedi.
Right.
He had a little bit of Jedi training, but this is a guy who went, I have some abilities, but I'm going out into the world or the universe galaxy to make this work for me because everything else went sideways. It didn't have to be a Jedi story. I'd love to see more of those.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, we get to see almost like two sides of what would happen with a Boken Jedi, depending on who they were trained by. Like, luckily Ezra had Kanan, know, and unfortunately, Jod had, this one, this one Jedi who unfortunately got hunted down. And so, like, everything he was taught, maybe he didn't get right away. Then he kind of took those and that just kind of warped with however terribly his life went afterwards. That's so good. That's so good.
It's such a great story. And again, in a way, it's a story that doesn't need to be told. And I would love to hear it, but it doesn't need to happen. A lot of people, I saw a couple people on Twitter saying, give us that story. We're owed a backstory. No, we're not.
We're not owed shit.
We're not owed shit.
we don't. I would love to get Jod's backstory, but if I never do, I know enough about him to know, he saw some shit and that's what screwed him up, and that's who he is, and that's all right. And also, listen, it's a guy who's got 6 different names in this series alone. Who knows if that's really what happened? He might have been trying to throw a little Jedi shade to Wim to kind of throw Wim off the track. So we don't know. And I think that's great. I think it's about time we have a character that we don't need. I mean, this is the point that I made immediately following the show on Twitter. When we watched Return of the Jedi, we had no idea who the Emperor was. We didn't even know his name. He was the Emperor. That was all we knew. And that's all we needed to know about him. We knew he was more evil than Darth Vader. He was Darth Vader's boss, and he was trying to kill Luke. That's it. Give me a movie. I'm ready. So I like where we are with it. And as we were saying at the top of the show, if we don't get a second season,
that's a crime.
It's a crime. But if we don't, that's fine. I mean, less of a crime than not getting a second season of Acolyte. Not because I like the Acolyte so much, but because that story left so much to be answered.
Don't get me started. So many.
This one was wrapped the right way.
Yep.
All it took was a little bit of patience, and then we could have had an awesome story with the Acolyte. My God, it was going in so many directions. Oh, so many good.
What do you think of this? Emrys is joining us in the chat tonight. Thank you so much for hanging out. He says, I see 2 things with Jod, or he's going to join the Knights of Ren. That would be cool.
No, it's not too old. But I don't know.
It's kind of cool. That's cool. Who knows? But here's the thing too, like we were saying when Kyle was with us, they don't all need to be connected. And I think that was what was cool about this story is the only character we had ever seen before was Vane, and that was because he was a background character in Mando and he was a background character in this, and that's cool. That's all we need.
You know what? There is another one that was from Mando that was in this, in like a quick shot of him in the first episode of this show, and it was this one human who was also in Mando, who did survive. Remember that scene in that bar on that planet, like in like the first episode?
Yeah.
And this human who was speaking Huttese.
Yeah.
That guy was also on that. He's one of the pirates.
Was he?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
So,
really
and
cool.
he didn't die in that scene. Like I just did like a season 1 Mando rewatch, and he just got stabbed in the ass, so he's fine.
He'll be fine.
He'll be fine. A little back there, he's good to go.
Yeah.
But so he was in there as well, so that was cool. But
That's great.
I thought that maybe that one pirate, the Nikto pirate, was going to be like a bigger character, and he wasn't. And I'm like, I didn't even this is afterwards. I'm thinking this. I didn't even notice. I'm like, whatever. This story is so good. This show is so awesome.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. For sure. Well, Chris, we're going to let you go. We're going to close up the show because we've got no more callers. I saw a couple people out there who had things to say. You're welcome to dial in, but we're probably going to close up. Chris, thank you so much for hanging. and we'll talk to you again soon.
All right.
Oh, he's still there. Hi.
Surprise.
It has been an evening of technical challenges, but that's okay. It's been fun. Nick,
Yes, sir.
this show has been a blast. I know we have when do we have our we won't say who it is yet, but when do we have our author guest coming? Is that next week?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. All right, we have an author guest
Yep.
coming to join us live on the show next week. It's going to be our first week in a while without a show on Disney Plus. So we'll be talking about all the news, and we'll be relying on your calls and conversations. So make sure to be ready to dial in and hang out with us. But Nick, any parting thoughts?
It's been a great show. Not this show. Skeleton Crew has been a great show. I mean, the show's great too. Why not?
Yeah, it's been all right. It's been all right.
I
Been a
wanna
great
thank-
guest.
I want to thank Kyle for joining us again.
Yes.
I know there's a couple of folks. Kyle was cool enough to share his stream and stream this on his channel. So there's a couple of y'all hanging out and watching. Thanks for being here. You're welcome back any Thursday night. Come back, join us, call in when we take calls. We take calls every week. We want to be that Star Wars fan talk show where you get to be a part of the conversation. So thanks for being here. To all of our regular folks that are here, we love you. Thank you for supporting us. It has been a night filled with technical difficulties, and because Eric took us so far down the path, we're going to go one more time tonight. I mean, it's Thursday. What do we have to do tomorrow except go to work? It's fine. So to everybody hanging out tonight, cheers to you.
Cheers to you. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Every Thursday night, we do this Star Wars thing. We want to hang out with you. And as Nick said, we want you to be a part of the show. So, hey, if you were watching this week and you're like, I got things to say, do it. Come and join us. So, Nick, until next time, may the Force be with you.
Always.
Just one more round, friend, then homeward bound, friend. Don't forget me in your dreams. Just one more song, friend, and then so long, friend. The nights get shorter, it seems. Just one more rhyme, friend. Yes, it's a crime, friend. But you know time, friend. Time can fly. So it's good night, friend. Good night, but not goodbye.